To live in the shadow of God. Good evening. Psalm 121, verse 5. The Lord is your keeper, the Lord is your shade at your right hand. Many things can, so to speak, cast their shadow over us. Things that make us scared and insecure. The most famous is probably the valley of the shadow of death that we read from in Psalm 23. For the shepherd with his sheep on the way, the valley of dark shadow is the uncertain and dangerous parts of the journey. That's where he has to go with his sheep between rough rock walls. There where the possibility of danger lies all around them. Whoever looks at life from a certain angle will likely be able to make the statement that death casts a shadow over all aspects of life. At the baptism of a child, it is already mentioned in the formula that life is nothing but a steady death. The shadow of sin's death repeatedly makes us fall back into our old tendency of selfishness and disobedience. We cannot escape from that. Physical death casts its shadow over us in the form of disease, injuries, old age, and eventually the death itself. No human can escape it. For the traveler of Psalm 121, however, the shadow is a comforting image. The traveler sees his shadow and it reminds him of the constant presence of the Lord. He's always there, like a shadow. Sometimes it's behind him and you do not notice it. Other times the shadow is small and almost unnoticeable. Other times you are well aware of your shadow that stretches long in front of you. And sometimes you can ignore the shadow, but other times it starts larger than life size in front or next to you. However, you can never get away from your shadow. So you cannot get away from the Lord, no matter how hard you try, no matter how fast you run. The shadow also reminds the traveler of the welcome and the essential relief against the bloody summer sun in the desert. It can be life-threatening to be in the desert sun without shade to hide in. Then the shade of the tree or a rock wall is not only convenient, but vital. So is the Lord to him, a shadow with him, a resting place where he draws comfort and strength, a life-saving shelter when he is unsecure. Possible the poet sees in his shadow the living presence of the Lord, something similar to what the symbolism of the cloud has in the Old Testament. For example, his visibility in the form of a cloud becomes clear on the Mount Sinai and again when the Lord announces his presence in the tabernacle. Even in the New Testament, we find this symbolism during the baptism and with the glorification of Jesus on the Mount, when a cloud appears, casting a shadow over the bystanders. The Lord is indeed present. And his presence becomes a reality in the coming of the Son into this world. For believers in Jesus, the shadow has a rich and comfortable meaning. As a shadow at your right hand, so is God in the Lord Jesus Christ for us. The shadow of death no longer arouses fear in us. The shadow of death is for us indeed only a shadow, because Jesus Christ overcome death. Just one comment left. The word calls in Psalm 91 to seek refuge in the shadow of the Lord, not just occasionally, but to stay there, spend the night and dwell there. You cannot live in the shadow of the Lord by living far from him. Dear brother and sister, go out into the sun and look at your shadow. Let it not only remind you of the temporality of our existence on earth, but especially of the Lord who is with us like a shadow at our right hand. Good night.